Welcome to the VL, the official unofficial viewers lounge of The Mole season 3. I'm McKenna,
And I'm Victoria.
and I'm really excited to get into the second episode. Personally, I liked it a lot better than the first episode, a lot more action, a lot more
Mhm.
clues.
Yeah. Yeah, this episode had more twists, and overall, there's like a lot that I want to talk about.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to dive into it.
Hmm.
So we left off in the last episode, um, at the execution. Kim is executed.
Hmm.
Um, and then we start up this episode and um it opens with a bunch of different confessionals, right?
Hmm.
after
Some
after Kim.
creepy looking confessionals.
Yeah, almost like what you would get sent if you were like getting a ransom note.
Yeah. Hmm.
um so Corbin starts right out and he's like, I'm on the scent of the mole. He thinks he knows who it is.
Hmm.
um it, and I like the vibe of these confessionals. I'm not sure if they're like giving us the whole truth
Hmm.
um, or what.
Yeah, I'm assuming these confessionals are more like trying to be funny. So I don't
Yeah.
think we can read too much into them, but they were kind of interesting.
Yeah, my personal favorite was Steven's when he was like, Eric can't be the mole. He's just an idiot.
Well, we'll see who the real idiot is at the end of the episode.
Right, seriously.
Yeah, and then
Um,
Eric has this interesting confessional where he was saying that he was something about playing mind games, and then he said, why would I be able to make people think I was the mole or something?"
yeah, and he got up close to the camera. He was like really theatrical. And then Kathy obviously cracks a joke. She's pretending to call her mom. No one's answering. Uh,
And then we have Frederic
oh yeah.
saying that Kathy is suspicious to her because she changes suddenly from different personalities. Like she could be calm and then give you info.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was interesting. And then the last one was Corbin, and then someone's knocking at the door, and then he says, "I gotta go."
And
Yeah.
that was just like an interesting little bit. It did feel a little theatrical and gimmicky, but also like Frederic made good points about Kathy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we can take too much from it,
Mhm.
but you never know. This game's got me paranoid.
It does make me paranoid just watching the episodes.
Hmm. I'm definitely this episode put myself more in the position of the players,
Mhm.
and like I don't know, I would be stressing out.
Yeah. Yeah, but we do start with um the pot being at 50,000 at the start of this episode, and they're having breakfast, and there's just a few confessionals. So Kathy is saying how she wants to execute people in her own head.
Yeah, and she like goes on to say that she's executed Stephen Baldwin 14 times at least, which is hilarious to me because then it almost cuts into this montage of like them being really weird with each other.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a continuation of last episode where it was weird too.
yeah, and in last episode she had a weird thing with Corbin too. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Kathy can't have a normal relationship with anybody. There's a lot of ribbing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I didn't like from that beginning segment of breakfast, that was the only thing that really stood out to me
Yeah.
before the first game.
Hmm. Well, when we get on theme with this game, there's always interesting news that happens at these meals. So we go straight into the first challenge where they're going to have a chance to add up to 24,000 in the pot. And this challenge's theme is to take them back to the days when they had different kinds of jobs. So they're required to pair up. So the pairs are two lifeguards, two short order cooks, and two flight attendants. Do you have like a preference based off of just those descriptions?
Um, I would probably be a short order cook based on the descriptions. I don't really enjoy swimming and I don't like flying. So,
Yeah, that's the same for me. And I would assume that the short order cook was more related to actual cooking. But
yeah.
even with what the challenges actually were, I would probably be a short order cook. So the breakdown ends up being Michael and Eric as lifeguards, Frederique and Kathy as the short order cooks, and then we have Corbin and Steven as flight attendants. And after they're paired off, they're told specifically what this challenge is. So the challenge is interesting because it's actually a game of predictions where they have to predict whether other players will complete their task. And for every correct answer, it adds money to the pot. Um, so in terms of what the tests were specifically, the cooks needed to walk over a hot bed of lava to retrieve a chicken and come back. And then the lifeguards had 5 minutes to jump off a 40-foot cliff. And then the flight attendants had to be on a biplane doing aerial stunts, and they would have to clean the instrument panel.
Yeah, that not for me.
Well, would you do it if you were assigned to?
Yeah, I think I would do it. I think
Okay.
if I were in the situation where I'm on this game, I'm playing, there's a chance to win money. If I'm just a player, for sure I'm doing it.
Oh,
Um,
but with this twist, would you do it like assuming there's the possibility that people think you're not going to do the task? Would you use that to justify?
I think I would come into the game like looking at the past two games, I would come into it wanting to be like gung ho and like all into these challenges. So I don't think there's like would be any reason for them to think I wouldn't do it.
Hmm.
Um, so even though I really wouldn't want to. I don't think
Hmm.
I mean the hot lava, sure, whatever. But the other two are pretty scary.
Hmm. Yeah, I think with the other two tests, I could get away with not doing it and being correct. But then
Yeah.
I think for the lava, I would have to do it.
And I think that I mean they seem to be like a decently short distance that they were carrying this
The
chicken,
chicken.
a full chicken.
Yeah. Um, so after we get the description, we kind of go through each of the people and watch them do their task. So
Yeah. Well,
Steven,
oh,
oh, you can go ahead.
actually, I was gonna say, while so the way that they received the information about these tasks, um, is they were taken in their pairs, like out of the breakfast area,
Hmm.
let and left kind of by deduction, and we see here I'll give you a little tidbit. I was hoping like in this moment I'm like, dang, I hope either Corbin or Steven gets executed at the end of this episode because I cannot tell them apart from the back. Like I can't tell their heads apart. And so in this moment we see Corbin is looking at Steven's journal.
Hmm.
Steven left his journal on the table. And oh sorry, my cat. Just like Jonathan.
A
um,
common VL situation.
yeah, pets. Not even my cat. But Steven's looking at Corbin's journal, and at first I don't think anything of it because I can't tell
Hmm.
what is happening and whose journal is actually being looked at. But I like don't know about you, but for this part, I went back and paused about 7 times to see if I could see anything that was written in the journal.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't get anything except for Kathy was written really large at the top, which who knows what the heck that means. And then he just was like making notes of what everyone was wearing, like what colors they were wearing. So
Yeah. From the look of it, it did seem like the page was relatively full, but I can't really remember.
yeah, it was like full, but it was like I'll show you. Like these are irrelevant notes. It was like not as full as this.
Hmm.
Like
It
it was
so
like scratchy, like
uh-huh.
like making lists of things.
Which
Um,
would make sense for the mole because they want to be taking notes about something, but not be writing too many thoughts.
right. And like you're writing objective facts, like
Yeah.
Kathy's wearing black,
Mhm.
like Michael's wearing this, or like Michael had a second drink at breakfast. Like those
Mhm.
things can't be refuted.
Yeah. But honestly, I would be taking notes similar to him if I were playing, regardless of if I'm the player of the mole, because I'm not the journaling type, so you won't see me writing any thoughts in a journal. Like I remember everything that I'm
Yeah.
thinking. So yeah, it's hard to say, but that is consistent with him potentially being the mole.
Yeah. And it felt like very in the way he reacted. I mean, I would be pissed because then we see Steven check my notes actually. Steven is caught reading Corbin's journal. Corbin comes out and is like, "Take your hands off my crap, like give it back to me." And they do like this little chase around the breakfast table, and Kathy and Frederick are like, I think one's 11 and one's 12, like making jokes about how they're um being immature, but
Mhm.
it felt very moley of Corbin.
Mhm.
Um, there's like huge reaction.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. So yeah, so that all happened before we actually get into the challenge. I just thought that was relevant, pretty
Mhm.
relevant.
I don't really have too much to say about like the individual challenges, but we could go through them. So Steven does the biplane. Um, nothing too. I think for most of these tasks, if you just decide to do it, there's not really going to be a problem after that. So Steven does the biplane, Eric does the 40-foot jump pretty quickly,
Hmm.
and then Kathy does the chicken task where she goes and grabs the chicken after walking on a bed of lava, and Frederic does it afterwards.
Hmm.
Then we have Michael who's too scared to jump off of the cliff.
Yeah. So Michael, I wrote this down in my notes. Remember Michael during the very first challenge, he's like when he was getting up to swing on the rope, he makes this comment like, I told my wife that I would not do these challenges that are like it's not worth risking my life. And then he decides to swing from a rope onto a into a waterfall into a rocky
Mhm,
cliff, but he won't jump off after he sees Eric successfully do it. Like
mhm,
I just said he's like always talking about his wife and like his
mhm,
that's like maybe a little cop out, like I told my
mhm,
wife I have to get back to my kids. Like realistically, are you gonna die? Probably not.
mhm, mhm,
But I just thought that's an interesting. He keeps talking about his wife and kids, like how that's the reason he's not gonna do this.
mhm.
So yeah, doesn't end up jumping. Does though step up and they count him down and he just doesn't jump.
I feel like that's even scarier than just doing it.
Have you ever done anything like that before? Like have you ever jumped off a cliff into a water?
Do you think I have?
I would say no.
Yeah, no, but I think I would do it.
I've done it like much smaller scale. Gone like cliff jumping,
Mhm,
not like if anyone's ever seen Twilight, they like she jumps off this massive cliff. Not like that, but there's an area in like you can jump off in Lake Superior. So not that high, but still kind of scary.
Well, maybe we can do that sometime.
Yeah, it feels like a one and done, but now that I've done it once, I would do it again. But this was like much higher and the waves were crashing into the
Yeah.
no.
I mean, it was understandable if you're scared, but I think the whole TV element makes it a little different.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you're just out there with your buddies and they're like, "Hey, let's jump into this massive swell." Like, no, I'm not going to do it. But you have a whole probably med crew and you're also like a celebrity.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, after Michael doesn't jump off the cliff, we don't get Corbin doing the plane because apparently there was bad weather. So now we go back to the six of them to reveal who predicted what and then how much money they're going to get.
mhm. So I don't remember what order they asked in, but I have it in the order that they perform the tasks.
Same.
So Stephen, they kind of were standing around, they asked, raise your hand if you thought Stephen would complete the task, and three people raised their hands. So they added $3,000 to the pot.
So it was Kathy, Eric, and Frederique that thought he
That
would
thought.
do it. And the one thing that was suspicious about this was that Michael didn't think Stephen would do it.
Yeah.
And Stephen just seems like that type that would do anything. So that was suspicious. But it was interesting how no one brought up Corbin not voting that way as suspicious.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I thought that was interesting too. I did notice um that the max that anyone ever got was 4 grand. So I'm wondering if your partner couldn't vote on you.
Oh, does that align?
I think so.
Oh yeah, that would make sense because it's a 24,000 pot 6 times 4.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense as to why they
Oh,
didn't.
yeah, that would make sense why no one was surprised when there were only 4 people that voted.
Right. Because then it would make sense too if you're like discussing it with your partner
Hmm.
of like what, if you're gonna do it or not.
Hmm.
Um, so Eric, all four
Hmm.
raised their hand, said he would do it, so they added another 4 grand.
Hmm.
Kathy, only two people said that she would walk across the hot coals. And she did it, so they added $2,000. So that's an additional 9,000 so far.
So yeah, that was Eric and Michael that said she would walk.
Um,
Frederique gets everybody.
yeah. Kathy, I just find it interesting that the two that didn't vote Kathy are Steven and Corbin, who are like now they're in like this hate triangle.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Frederick gets everybody. Um, Corbin,
Michael, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say Corbin, since he wasn't able to compete, they just asked him, "Would you have done it?" And he said yes. And then everyone said that he would do it, so they added $4,000 anyway. Like
Mhm.
just weird.
Yeah, that's weird, but I do think he would have done it.
Yeah, I definitely think he would have done it, but just like weird that it was like the honor system.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then Michael. So everyone said that they thought he would do it.
Hmm.
And then he had to say that he didn't, which I thought put him on the spot.
Hmm.
Um, Instead of just not earning the $4,000, they lose $4,000. Um, So
Or
now,
I don't think I think they just said lose 4,000, but not that it was something that was already added in. Like I guess um because the missing money was from Kathy, so 2,000, and then 1,000 was missing from Steven, so 3,000 plus
oh,
4,000. So it wasn't like losing money they already earned. It just meant like you're not going to get the 4,000 you could have. So that
okay,
brings them to 17,000 out of 24,000, which brings the pot up to 67,000.
that makes sense. Okay, so I was doing some jotting down, and I wasn't sure how the total at the end of the episode ended up, but that makes sense. That makes sense. Um,
I did
so this,
think this was an interesting way to do the challenge. Like, now you have to think what people think of you.
mm-hmm,
Uh,
yeah, because
so that means if I'm ever assigned to any kind of acting type challenge, I'll just not do it, and you can't even say I'm sabotaging.
me too. We'll get to that. Um, I know I feel like I said, I think I feel like I would present myself as somebody that's like gung ho and like team player, like ready to earn this money. So I would feel like people would expect me to do things unless I spoke about my all my fears of, you know, water and heights and stuff. Not that I have a fear of the water, I just don't like it. Um, but yeah, after this challenge, Michael's got to know people think he's the mole.
Or they're noticing he wants to try to be the mole, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, because he kind of is setting himself up to be like under the radar,
Mhm.
but he's losing all this money for them. Like
Mhm.
and everyone else completed it. Like when you're the only one that definitely like hones in on you.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. Makes me think about Michael a little bit.
Okay.
Not that I think he's the mole, but I not just that I think we didn't hear a lot about him last episode, so now where he's like building the storyline.
Mhm. That's true. There wasn't too much before the second challenge, right?
No, just Steven's like if Michael's the mole, he's gonna wish he had never been born. I laughed at that. Um,
Yeah. But anyways, we get into our second challenge where they're now on a boat,
yeah,
and I would get seasick for sure.
me too. I have silly little motion sickness glasses,
Mhm.
um, that I
But yeah,
need
they go all the way
everywhere.
into the Pacific Ocean, and it's going to be partners again. And we find out that they're going to be doing charades. So two players need to pair up to do charades. Two need to go into a submarine, and two need to be grave diggers. So
Yes.
the charades people need to convey the titles of TV shows or movies in which there's a character that dies, and then they need to make sure that the two submarine people are able to guess, and then after the submarine people guess, there's going to be two people in the graveyard trying to dig up the coffins of the character or the actor whose character died.
Hmm.
And the pairs end up being Michael and Corbin doing the charades, Stephen and Frederique doing the submarine, and then Kathy and Eric being gravediggers. I'm already a little bit triggered.
Me too. Me too. I heard charades and I was like, this can't be good.
Like, I would be bad at all parts of this challenge.
Yeah, me too. I think I would be the best at the grave digging, honestly. Like just as a physical, I wouldn't know any of the actors or who they portrayed,
Yeah.
but I would be like good at digging.
Yeah. But yeah, this is like even worse than a charades that's based off of either animals or sports because I don't know movies or TV.
Yeah, I know I'm sorry, I know TV shows. I don't know movies. I especially don't know movies from 2004 and older. Like I did know I knew it was like easier because they were letting them sound out the words and like they were breaking the words down. So I probably could have gotten it eventually, but not in they had 15 minutes, right? To do
For
all.
all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, heck no. I mean,
Yeah.
us, it would have taken us 60 minutes.
To do one. Yeah.
One.
Yeah, but yeah, we don't see it. Oh, we actually do see an animal in one of the movie names, but no like monkey related animals.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes or something.
um, but yeah, in case you don't get the reference, me and McKenna once played charades in a Survivor type game, and I could not guess baboon.
And I could not act baboon.
um, Yes, but in terms of how this the money is added after you dig up the five coffins, the 25,000 would be in one of them. So if you're lucky, you would get the 25,000 in the one coffin, but if you're not lucky, then you would have to dig up all of them.
Right. And they can't check as they're digging.
Hmm.
Like they're not supposed
Yeah.
to. This I will say so far is my favorite challenge that they've done.
Hmm.
Um, Even though I don't necessarily like charades, I like watching other people do charades.
I mean,
Um,
it always is better watching other people do it.
and it's better when you're like, it's this, you idiots. Which I'm sure
It's
there were
not fun.
people
It's
yelling
not
that at
fun
us.
being the one doing the charades and having that group think that of you.
Yes, we can relate on both ends. Um, yeah, I think too the added element of being underwater is hard. Like,
Because that's scary already.
hmm And I mean, it really prevents you from talking
Hmm.
and making noises.
Hmm.
Um,
And then it also makes it harder to do the motion that you're intending to do.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, we'll talk about this, but they like broke, like you could see on the screen, like they're breaking it up, every word up by syllable.
Hmm.
And like at one point they had the middle syllable guessed. And like on the screen it was like blank
Hmm.
OU blank and then a different word. And it's
Hmm.
just like as a viewer, if you didn't know what was going on or you didn't know the movie, you're like, what the heck is this word?
Yeah.
Um, and we do see that where they opt to skip around a little bit.
Hmm. So we could go in the order of the movies as they were guessed. So
Yeah.
the first one was Pearl Harbor. That was pretty easy.
Hmm. I probably
I
would have gotten that one.
At least like the since they're acting the name rather than the content of the movie.
Right. Right. Because how do you act that out as a single person?
Yeah. And then that gets communicated relatively quickly. So Josh Hartnett is the one that dies. And this is when Eric accidentally opens the lid to the coffin.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kathy's like, oh, I saw you. Like, was there money in there? Was there money in there? And he says, no. It was just bones. Just bones. Um, and Kathy just opts to believe him.
Mhm.
I'd be like,
Unless it's breaking the rules twice, like.
yeah, I guess like if you're intentionally opening it, it's probably breaking the rules. But since he like lifted the coffin by the lid,
Mhm.
like sneaky, but do we think Eric could figure that out?
Who knows?
Who knows? Um, And it was weird when Kathy was like, I haven't seen Pearl Harbor. And of the two of them, I would expect her to know more movies.
Mhm. The second movie was What Lies Beneath. So this was pretty smooth also. And
Mm-hmm.
then that was Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Um Pretty straightforward. Then the third one was South Park and the answer was Kenny.
Yeah, and they got that one really easily as well. And then Eric starts acting a fool at Kenny's grave. Kathy's like, I don't know what he's doing, but he's mumbling and he's talking in a South Park voice.
The
Oh,
fourth movie was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And so this was actually the first movie that was attempted where we had the OU randomly in the first word.
mhm.
I think I could have figured this one out. It's actually a movie I've watched.
Really? I've
Yeah.
never watched this movie.
Mhm,
Um, it it's hard, and I feel like it'd be intimidating to start with that one because it's so long.
mhm. I
Uh,
think if people got either Tiger or Dragon, they would know it because it was a popular movie.
yeah, because well, and they tried when they went back to this movie, they tried to skip. Steven tried to skip it again, and
Mhm,
Frederick was like, "No, no, let's keep going." And I think Michael he was like focusing on crouching,
mhm.
and he should have been focusing on like tiger or dragon.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, Chow Yun Fat is the one that dies in this movie, and then the last one they don't get, but it was American Beauty, which I found that one the most suspicious because even I could have gotten it.
yeah, and and like I made this comment earlier off cam, but like American Beauty has been in the news in the last 3 years with like all the Kevin Spacey trials and accusations and all that stuff. And I feel like once you become aware of something, you like can pick up on it a little easier.
Mhm,
And I know Victoria said she just watched it, so
mhm.
um maybe it's fresh in our memory. But it was suspicious because also those are just two easier words.
Yeah, and it was a popular movie.
Yeah, and they got beauty.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And it
and
was suspicious because Steven is a Kevin Spacey fan.
yeah, and they worked together. That was like a comment. That's
Mhm.
weird. Um, but yeah, so then they only were able to dig four of the five graves. Um, so
Now
they
we go to reveal the results in the creepy graveyard.
yeah. This is giving I don't know if you're familiar with SNL skits.
Yeah.
Um the there's the skit um and Pete Davidson's in it, and all of the like regular cast members are like ghosts and trees, and they sing
Mhm,
this riddle that they need to solve to get out of the graveyard. And there are these two ghosts that just like accidentally died in the graveyard, and they're stuck, and they're Paul and Phil, and they give the whole riddle away, and they're like drunk ghosts. Anyways, it's going on too long. But this scene of them in the graveyard, all I could think of is like Paul and Phil jumping up and starting to sing. It looks like a similar set. So also it's like, we're getting into the Halloween mood, and I watch that skit a lot.
mhm,
Anyway, so they're in the graveyard, they're all standing as a group where they have to reveal, they have to start opening these caskets to see if the money is inside or if it's just bones.
mhm.
Um, um,
So the first coffin was Chow Yun Fat, all
yeah.
bones. Then we have Kenny, all bones. And then they have this opportunity after the first two coffins to either take 5,000 or continue.
Hmm.
And most people at this point want to continue. So the next one is Harrison Ford, which is all bones. And then they get another choice after the third coffin, which is 10,000 or continue again. And so this time there's more debate about it.
Yeah.
Um, what would you advocate for if it was the second time?
Well, it depends because um if I'm Kathy, I'm like saying take the money because this is the coffin that Eric accidentally opened and said was no money. Um and so I guess if I'm Eric and I'm Kathy, I'm saying take the money. But I feel like 80% chance of the money being in there, I would say like let's just go for it. If I didn't have that extra knowledge.
Yeah, I think I would just go for it also, just because at this point, there's still a relatively low chance that you're going to end up being the winner that gets the money. So why not just gamble?
Yeah. And like it's 20, not that $25,000 is a small amount of money by any means, but like you're probably gonna make it up somewhere else.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. And I feel like you have 1 in 2 chance at this point that the money's in your casket. You might as well just open it and go for it.
Mhm.
But like I said, if I'm Kathy or Eric, I'm saying take the 10 grand.
Yeah. Well, the fourth movie is the Pearl Harbor, and Corbin is saying we should open it because Pearl Harbor is related to Hawaii.
Is in Hawaii, yeah.
Mhm.
Or it's a like the movie is takes place in Hawaii and they're on a Hawaiian island. That's like pretty sound logic in my opinion.
Mhm. Now that
And
you know that the fifth movie's American Beauty, like it makes some sense to me.
right. If you're trying um and while this is happening, they're cutting to some confessionals and some are about the decision making and some are about the game itself.
Mhm.
And one I found interesting is um Steven is saying there were two back to back. Steven says if the goal of the mole is to keep money out of the pot, Michael is the mole and he is in trouble.
Mhm.
And then cuts to Corbin saying Michael is not the mole because he did not mess that up. Steven was the one that blew it.
Mhm.
Um, and like you said, that's when they talk about Steven being a Kevin Spacey fan.
Mhm.
And then we cut to Kathy and Eric both. Um, Kathy's like, Eric told me there's no money in that coffin.
Mhm.
Like, I'm let it be known I'm pushing for the 10K.
Mhm.
Um, and so,
Yeah, that was weird to me because Eric has this confessional about how he has a hidden coalition with Kathy. And then we have this oddly placed voiceover from Kathy where she says, you know, if I took a second and thought I was in a coalition with the mole, and then it cuts to her in the graveyard saying, you all saw it. So it was weirdly placed, I think.
mm, it was weird. Um,
Mhm.
and like, so Eric's motivation. I was trying to wrap my head around this. Like, what's Eric's motivation for telling them to open the case?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, he knows there's no money in it.
Mhm. And then there was no, I felt like if he said they were in a hidden coalition, I would have expected a flashback where I see them discussing how they're going to purposely sabotage. And
Mm-hmm.
that was missing. So it was weird.
Right. So is the coalition is Eric going to use that like as a lie potentially in the future? Because he
Yeah.
would like he could always say like, look, Kathy was pushing for the money.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
it
It
was
was
weird.
weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pot remains at 67,000 because they're not able to get the money from this challenge.
Hmm.
And then after that, we get to the dinner, and now Ahmad is offering a chance to earn the 25,000 they didn't get if they're able to unanimously vote for one person to get an exemption.
Hmm.
But the stakes are high because if you don't decide, you actually lose 25,000 rather than just get no money. So there's like a $50,000 swing for this.
This is the most insane part of the episode, in my personal
Yeah,
opinion.
I would not be eating anything.
No, I would not be eating, and I'm a nervous eater.
Oh, okay.
You're the
I'm the
opposite.
opposite. When I'm nervous, I can't eat.
When I'm nervous, I'm like eating so that I don't talk.
Uh-huh. Oh, but do you eat grapes when you don't want to talk?
No, usually popcorn.
Oh yeah, that was someone else. I forgot. um
He who shall not be named. Um,
Um, so yeah, Steven starts off this conversation and asks Kathy who she wants to get the exemption, and she says she wants it.
duh. That's like the most logical answer. I feel like at this point is to say yourself.
Well, I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, if I'm the mole and somebody asked me who should get the exemption, I think I would be scrambling in my head to figure out who I should say to make it look less suspicious. But
Mm,
I think because I didn't personally need the exemption, I would forget that I was an option also. But I don't know if that's just me.
that's fair. I didn't think about it that way. I just thought like if you name somebody else, then it makes it seem like you don't need the exemption.
That's true.
Like especially Kathy's being called out right away, like I would panic and say me.
Okay. I think
And
if I were the mole and I didn't know this was coming, I would probably panic and say someone else by accident.
I
Yeah.
mean, we go on to um see
Eric agrees to
yeah,
Kathy, and
Eric.
then
I don't get him. Yeah, and then Frederique says herself, Steven says himself, Michael says himself, and then Corbin says Eric.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
this was interesting to me because Corbin says he wants somebody who's harder to figure out to be possibly out. And this was pretty shaky logic because it makes some sense because if you if you're unsure whether someone's the mole, you would want to give them a chance to go home, but there's no indication so far that Eric's for sure not the mole, so
mhm.
logic was a little bit off.
Well, and to me, Eric's the hardest one to figure out at this like what
Yeah.
is he doing? Like he's so inconsistent
Mhm,
with his actions. And so it was interesting for him, yeah, to call out Eric.
mhm,
And then at once Steven's the one that asks like why Eric, and then Steven's like, good enough for me, I'll vote Eric too.
mhm. Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, the Corbin confessional caught my attention, and then the fact that nobody called him out on it also caught my attention
mhm.
because I feel like someone would have in confessional. But yeah, one thing I wasn't 100% clear about is whether the lost money goes to the mole. I think so.
I so in the intro video, it says like the mole is already being paid to deceive.
Oh, okay. So
So
there's no added incentives, maybe.
right, I don't know if there's like I don't think there's a mole pot, and I don't know if that money would go to the mole, but I feel like similar. to who done it. I think the mole, like the killer's just being paid more
Okay.
and like probably prepaid.
Okay. Yeah, so Steven changes his vote to Eric,
Mm-hmm.
Michael changes to Eric, Kathy changes to Eric, but then Frederique says no to that and still wants it to be her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she kind of questioned like why?
Mhm.
Why are you guys so willing to?
And then Corbin decides that he's not going to do it anymore. And
Screw it.
then Frederique later agrees to do Eric, but then now Corbin's being annoying.
Yeah, and Corbin's like, no, I won't do it. And um he's like, I would rather take money out of the pot unless you guys give me the exemption. So he's like, now take that same logic that we are putting that on Eric and everyone just vote for me or we're losing the money.
Yeah. And then
Like,
Steven joins into that too. So basically means they're not going to agree.
yeah, and at one point they're like, we have 2 minutes, and they're all just sitting there,
Mhm.
like saying, nope, if you don't vote me, I'm willing to lose the money.
Mhm.
Like,
Well, what do you think about that? Do you think if you were in the game, you would prevent the unanimous vote if it wasn't for you?
I'm so damn agreeable that I would not. I would go along with who like if someone spearheads this plan, you know me, I'm like a freaking pushover. Like if someone spearheaded this plan and says like it's for the greater good, it's for the pot,
Mhm.
and like we already just lost this 25 grand, like kind of a close call
Mhm.
where it was a unanimous decision.
Mhm.
Um, I would go along with it. Um,
Yeah, it's hard for me to like put my foot down, but this is also different from Survivor where you can piss people off. So I think strategically, if you are a player, it's good to prevent the unanimous vote from happening because in this round, there's only 5 people eligible to go home. And then if one of them has the exemption, you have a 1 in 4 chance of going home, which means you're not going to get the money anyways.
that's
So I
true.
think it would be a good time to sabotage to prevent someone else from getting it.
Do you think Frederique initially was like running numbers in her head and that's why she was so unwilling to like we don't get a lot of Frederique in this episode. Um
Um,
like I'm
well,
not really
I don't
quite
know
sure
if
where
I'm correct about this, but I think the reason why is because I don't personally think she's the mole right now. So it would make sense as a player who wants to win the game.
right, right. And maybe she's not confident on who she thinks the mole is
Mhm.
enough to not
Because
get
if you can give the exemption to the mole, that works too.
right.
Well, anyways, the pot goes down to 42,000.
Yeah. And it was stressful. They kept like giving minute intervals and I'm like, there's absolutely no way.
Mhm. So now we get to the quiz. And so this time I actually wrote down what the questions were.
Me too.
But yeah, these questions are difficult.
Yeah.
So first question, male or female? The second question is when they revealed the answers to, I guess I can also mention the confessionals as they
In
come in.
between.
So after the first question was revealed, Corbin says that Eric knew there would just be bones in the coffin and still went for it. um the second question was when the underwater charades answers were revealed, who was standing to the left of the mole? I would have no idea.
No, and so they showed a clip, like a quick little snippet. Um, and again I paused and no one was to Eric's left. So I wonder if there's an option for no one on the quiz,
I
or
just had that thought as we were saying it. I can go back and watch. Um,
because I can't remember the options on the quiz, but I like wrote down no one was to Eric's left, but they had already breezed over that question. And I didn't go back and look.
I I think I think that the answer choices were the six names. So I'm gonna go back and watch that.
Okay.
Um, because that would be kind of a blunder.
Right. Like if you think Eric is the mole and you're sold on it and you remember,
Mhm.
unless which is it's like technically not correct, but you know how when you're like move to your right and you move all the way around,
Yeah, I think
that seems
if
wrong.
they're asking that question, there should be someone to the left.
Right. Well, okay. No.
It was
There's no one to the left of it depends on how you're looking. Because like for us, there's no one to the left of Eric, but I can't
now I'm
remember.
forgetting who was on the left on the other side.
Right. And I can't remember who's on the end of the other side. Like if it's like Steven's on the end and we're standing in line with Steven, there'd be no one to the left of Steven. Does that make sense? But on
Yeah.
our
Okay,
visual
I'm
standpoint,
gonna I'll be watching that right after we end this.
okay.
The
Anyway,
yeah, the third question was what pets does the mole have?
yeah, and the answers at the names too.
Mhm. So Frederic says here that Kathy could be the mole.
Hmm.
The fourth was what job did the mole have prior to being famous? I think.
Hmm.
And then the
Oh
fifth
no,
one,
the fourth one is what job did they have in the job game?
oh, okay. I misread. Okay.
Yeah, because that question's number 8, the one you just read.
And then the fifth one is the most favorite place they've traveled to.
Yeah, hard.
The
Um,
sixth one was the team in the charades challenge. And then we have a confessional with Eric talking about Steven sabotaging.
mhm.
The seventh one was is the mole's room number even or odd? No idea. The eighth one, what was the mole's odd job before coming becoming famous? And Steven says if Corbin's not the mole, then he has played the game very well. So yeah, this comment was weird.
Yeah, this is to me saying like you're answering all of these questions like Corbin's the mole.
Yeah. Huh. And then the ninth one, did they succeed at their task? And then the 10th one is who is the mole?
Hmm.
And then
Um,
we get to the execution, and
stress.
Steven is the one executed.
Yeah, and before we see that Steven's executed, we see Kathy, Michael, and Corbin, and they all get green thumbs, and then Steven. And immediately, you know what my mind went to? Kathy saying that she wishes she could execute Steven 14 times, and then if he goes, good riddance.
Mhm,
Like that's immediately what I thought of is that the episode opened with that like
mhm,
little foreshadowing.
mhm.
So, what'd you think about Steven leaving?
I thought that he would make it longer than he did,
Yeah,
and I enjoyed him on the show.
I did too. I know people
Mhm,
probably found him annoying, but like I liked him.
mhm,
Um, he did seem to be a little all over the place, but I thought he was pretty like he was a pretty big part of the first episode with not getting a partner and or yeah, not
mhm,
not getting a partner and like that whole scenario.
mhm.
Um so it's an interesting execution.
Yeah. Well, now it's time to get to our sauce rankings again. So I'll share my screen. Oh, so these are the sus rankings. So this is what we had for episode 2. And now that there's 5 people left after this episode, we will adjust. So do you want to give your fifth place person first?
Yeah. Um, okay. This is gonna be a bold move,
Okay.
but I think I'm gonna put Corbin.
Okay.
I'm putting Corbin here because this whole episode I was convinced Corbin was the mole. But that final confessional from Steven saying Corbin, if he's not the mole, he's playing this game really well, led me to believe that that he answered the questions as that Corbin was the mole and then get executed. So did he get executed because of time or did he get executed because a number of incorrect answers? Who knows? This might screw my average, but it's what my gut's telling me.
Okay. I think I'll put Michael in fifth. And the reason is because, like, I think he's kind of playing. I think if he were a player, he's kind of playing this strategy where he's trying to be super obvious. And then because of that, like, you think he might be the mole, but then you end up dismissing it. But I don't think I've ever seen a mole play the strategy of being super outrageous and then using that as a way to get people off of them. So that's why I have Michael at 5. At 4, I'll put Frederic. I think I think now, since we think that the mole is paid to deceive rather than just based off of the money that's lost in the pot, I don't think she has done too much to sabotage so far. And I think entertainment wise, like, the show would probably want somebody who's actually sabotaging. And then also at the dinner table, it did seem like she genuinely wanted the exemption.
Mm-hmm. My number 4 is Michael.
Mhm.
Similarly to you, they were just playing it up, about how many times he said he was gonna quit and or that he quit the waterfall jumping, and I think the edit is giving fake mole.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never seen a real mole try to be a fake mole to throw people off. Like, I haven't seen that before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, like for me when things are so obvious, it makes it seem like it's not that at all.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I don't think he's the mole.
Hmm. Who is your number 3?
My number 3 is Frederic.
Mhm.
Um, she's like I said earlier, she's kind of playing low key this episode, and you're right, she's not sabotaging anything. She seems like she genuinely wanted the exemption, and she seems to not really be on anyone's radars right now. Um, so I think that middle spot's good for her. I don't really know
Mhm.
about her.
Um, so my number 3 is Eric. Um, I'm still unsure about him, but yeah, I don't really know, like, he's suspicious, but I also think it's kind of Michael like, where it's pretty obvious also.
Hmm.
So that's why I think maybe not. And then my number 2 is Kathy. Um I think I'm between Kathy and Corbin for the mole still. Um I just think there's, like, enough suspicion on her right now.
Hmm. My number two is Eric. Um, Eric, honey, what are you doing? Like, I could go either way with Eric, but I wonder if he's playing dumb. Like, I wonder if he's playing into that character to make people think like there's no way he could be the mole.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know what happened at the graveyard, but that put him on my radar like mega.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I definitely think he's in the running where
Mhm.
last week I did not think so at all. I thought he'd be cut. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Um,
So that
but
leaves
obviously
your mole
Kathy.
pick as Kathy.
Yeah, Miss Kathy, I still think she's suspicious as heck. And it feels like a reign of terror, you know. Kathy wanted Steven gone, so Steven's gone.
Mhm.
Um, and it makes me think like Steven and Kathy had this back and forth relationship of, you know, banter and bickering and even in Steven's like outro, he's talking about Kathy and how he wants to fight her.
Mhm.
Um, and it makes me think like Kathy and Steven were close enough where Steven wouldn't have suspected Kathy.
Mhm.
I don't
Okay, well, that leaves my mole pick to be the same as last week.
know.
Like something makes me feel iffy about this still, but I think the main reason for thinking it's him, I just think that the dinner table situation where he makes the shady argument towards about Eric and no confessional comes up after that. Like, I thought that was interesting because if he wasn't the mole, then it would have shown that confessional where someone says it was suspicious. So
Right.
that's a little bit of shaky logic. And then I'm just gonna hope that Steven's confessional is not the main thing that should indicate that he's not the mole. But I am worried about Steven's confessional.
I was like on board to put Corbin at my one or two spot until that confessional. Like and I had been people had been kind of making comments or Steven had been making comments about Corbin kind of all episode, like interwoven to where he thought he was the mole. So just the fact that it was Steven that got executed plummeted Corbin. Which is probably a mega noob thought on my mind as someone who's never seen the show. Like obviously they're trying to set it up so that you can't guess who the mole is, but I don't care. That's what my gut says.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation because when the mole starts with 12 players, usually at around 5 players, people know who the mole is, and then it's just a matter of the quiz. But since this game only started with 7, it's hard for me to believe that all 5 knew who the mole was,
Mm-hmm.
but it's possible.
And there's they do give a little snippet at the end of the episode saying, you know, stuff is cut that isn't pertained to the game or you know, it's cut for time and like these people are actors and like I don't know, it just I'm really intrigued to know they should be able to read people. So I'm really intrigued to know who has been correct the longest or if anyone knows who it is right now. I don't.
Yeah. Well, do you have a winner pick for this episode?
Ugh, I want to stick with Michael, but he was such a little bitch during this episode that I don't want to pick him. But I'm gonna stick with my gut and I'm going to say Michael.
I'm kind of between Kathy and Frederique for the winner. Um, and I'll just stick with Frederique and then use next episode to adjust because I think next episode will reveal information.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the next episode. Like this past episode got me like going for the next one.
Like, yeah, I might even watch it right after this.
Oh, heck no, but maybe tomorrow.
Well, that wraps up our episode 2 recap. Do you have any final thoughts?
One game related thought and one non. First game related thought is everyone knows this is my first time watching The Mole. Um, and I think if you are a viewer and you're new to the game, give it a couple episodes because after the first episode I was like into it but
Mhm,
wasn't hooked.
mhm,
But now I'm like curious to know what happens.
mhm,
Second, these are my backup glasses. I could not find my main glasses, so please let me know if I should continue wearing them. They're huge on my face, but something new. Drop the comments.
mhm. Yeah, I agree about the not being hooked after the first episode because I've watched seasons 1 and 2, and so I knew I would like the third season also, but I do think the first episode was like a bit neutral to me.
There like has to be a lot of build up and you have to
Mhm,
learn about the people that are playing, so it makes sense. Like it's like that in any, reality show. You're like getting to know all these people and you're like this season's gonna suck.
mhm,
And then it gets better. But
mhm,
yeah, if you're trying to watch along with us and you're like this blows, it doesn't actually.
mhm.
Stick with it.
And you have a lot of incentives to stick with it because next week for our episode 3 recap, we will have a special guest. So you should definitely continue watching.
Yeah, and you can spend an hour of your time with us if you like what you see and you like the mole and you like, this next special guest episode. We're always looking for guests in the future.
Okay, sounds good. See you all next week. Bye bye.
Bye.